you know, it's really important that we know what a constitution is, and it is simply a set of rules that you all agree to abide by. A country will have a constitution so that there is an agreed set of rules about how government is to function, about who will make the rules, about how you will abide by them and who will make sure that we do abide with them. But really, it's just so that we can live together amicably and, you know, get on with each other. We do talk about the different types of constitutions that exist in Western European worlds and in the Māori world, and the fact that they are quite different. So the Western concept and site of power is a hierarchical one, where sovereignty is the most high and perpetual power over the citizens, and the site of power is the monarch in Parliament that has absolute authority and dominion over the land and over people. Constitutions are cultural constructs, and so it depends on your culture as to what your constitutional construct will be. And therefore it should be unsurprising that a Māori constitutional arrangement is very, very different from a Western European one. And our constitutional arrangement for Māori is that our power, our site of power and authority is mana. Mana is absolute and paramount power and authority derived originally from the gods. And that is something that passes down through the generations. So that's the concept of power. The site of power is your ariki, your rangatira, your leaders. And power is bestowed on your leaders by the people, and to be exercised in a way that is tika, that is correct. And it makes decisions by consensus. It cares for the people, keeps the people together, and ensures that our hapu and iwi, our social units that we have, are completely independent and can make their own decisions for themselves. Where you've agreed to and been part of making the constitutional rules for your country, it will fit probably with your culture, with your values, and there should be no difficulty keeping the peace. But where a significant part of the country or part of the population, particularly those who were there beforehand, before another group came in, have no role whatsoever in deciding what the constitutional arrangements can be. Everything that they hold dear to them, their cultural values, their way of seeing the world, the way they look after the things, the resources that are theirs, can be completely ignored if it's imposed without the permission of the indigenous people. It causes huge distress, deprivation, marginalisation, and we end up having a hugely impoverished people who are very, very unhappy and will, of course, often lead to war and the complete opposite of peace. If we have a look at what Te Tiriti or Waitangi envisage, it envisaged, first of all, that he Whakaputanga o te Rangatiratanga o Niu Tireni that is often known as the Declaration of Independence, that was issued by Rangatira, by our leaders back in 1835, that would be adhered to. Now, that declaration is a declaration of sovereignty that says that all sovereignty, all power, authority rests with the Rangatira, with our leaders, and that they would never ever devolve that power and authority, that mana, to anybody else. but that they would come together annually to make laws, to make sure that the peace was maintained, that trading was carrying on because we're great traders, and that essentially everybody was living in harmony with each other. However, what Te Tiriti guaranteed was that the subjects of the Queen of England, British, could immigrate. They were allowed to come and reside in this country, but it was conditional. And it was on the condition that they stopped their lawlessness, which they had been very, very lawless before that. So they had to stop that lawlessness, and they had to live under this thing called kāwanatanga. It's very unclear what kāwanatanga actually meant back then. But it's the kāwanatanga of the Queen of England, and that was the mechanism or mechanisms that she needed in order to stop her people being lawless. That was the condition. So in terms of Te Tiriti, the British who were coming over, and there were only 2,000 of them here at the time when this treaty was signed, they had been bothersome, and the Rangatiratanga leaders could not control them. And that is why they devolved authority to control the British immigrants. They devolved it to Queen Victoria. Now, under that arrangement, they would have to ensure that they themselves abided by the law, but they could not interfere with the lives, the resources, the lands of Māori. Māori retained complete control over those. We would make lands available, we would make resources available, but they would always be our resources. So that is a very different arrangement from what you see now, where Māori have no control over our lands, over our lives, over our resources, and we have watched the whole lot being desecrated, in many cases destroyed, including the lives of our people. And that state of affairs continues to this day. It is not at all what was envisaged by Te Tiriti or Waitangi when it was signed in 1840. British immigrants who arrived here in the 1840s deciding that rather than adhering to the agreement signed off in Te Tiriti or Waitangi, the treaty between the British Crown, Queen Victoria, and Māori, that rather than abide by that, they would unilaterally establish their own constitutional arrangement by issuing a proclamation that said that effectively Britain had taken over New Zealand, which was far from the truth. But they moved on from that and just imported not all of the Westminster constitutional arrangements, but they cherry-picked those that suited them and brought them into New Zealand. So you have a Westminster type of arrangement here, but it is very firmly based on the doctrine of discovery, where the notion behind it is that because these people were white and Christian, they could therefore come in, take over the country, and reduce the true owners of the country, the indigenous people of this country, to either servitude or commit genocide against them and strip them of everything. So that was what was introduced into this country, and it remains to this day the underpinnings of the constitutional arrangements in this country. Well, the biggest argument is that the colonization of this country by the British was illegitimate and illegal, and therefore, and it's done huge damage to this country, and that has to be fixed up. It's no good trying to just tweak things at the edges, because there is a fundamental underlying cause of all of this, and it is the constitutional arrangements. the first thing we need to do, of course, is for everyone, and I mean everyone, to sit down and talk about this and have a very, very long and meaningful conversation about what is needed to ensure that the balance is restored in the country. We would have an environment where Māori are fully recognised and respected in this country, and it would be just, that's the way it is in this country, where tikanga, Māori law, mātauranga Māori, that is our knowledge systems, He Whakaputanga of 1835 and Te Tiriti were all a natural part of the order of this country. And nobody would think that it was odd or that it was somehow different. It would be just the way things are. And that hapu and iwi, those social constructs within the Māori world, would exercise their own mana, make their own decisions about their own lives and their own resources. That all people would have a respected constitutional place in the country, and all people would know what that respected place was in this country. That people would have, that we would have a constitution for good, just and participatory government for and by all people that is consistent with agreed values and benefits everybody. And that's the main thing, is that at the moment, there are many people who derive very little or no benefit from the constitutional arrangements we have. It's not how it should be. Everybody should benefit. And that all New Zealanders would prosper and celebrate our heritage, and we would all be very, very proud of the way New Zealand is, and that it is a country that everybody loves to live in. We really do need to have that very long, serious and meaningful conversation in this country about the constitutional arrangements that we have here. And that it does need to include everybody, and it can include everybody, because the notion of constitutional transformation has become quite clear in the Māori world over the last, when did we start this work? 2009. So in the last, 12, 13 years, the mystery behind constitutional arrangements that is often portrayed as being something that most people can't engage in is just not true. And Māori have been really invigorated and taken a very active part in the discussions on the constitutional transformation that's needed in this country, because it is a simple matter of making decisions on how decisions are to be made and how government is to be conducted in this country in a way that upholds the value of democracy, that the people are all looked after, and that we all get on together and live in peace and harmony.